Hello everyone, this is Phaezer signing in, and welcome to my Affliction Warlock look and guide in the pre-patched Legion. So, we've already covered Destruction and Demonology in my previous videos, and now we're going to go through Affliction. This is mainly the dot spec. Many who have played it before will know how the spec works. It's about managing your dots, don't let them fall off, and using filler spell of Drain Soul, Drain Life, and keeping those dots rolling. That's the primary role of the Affliction Warlock, and most of your damage. So we'll just go over all the spells quickly. We have Agony. Now, Agony is the spell which generates your soul shards. It is no longer corruption, so completely Agony is your main dot. You want to have this on targets. You do not want to be using Agony on more than 4 targets. Really, it's just 3 targets. After that, you won't be casting any more Agonies out. Simply because the way that the shard system works is, so Agony is your only shard generator. However, for each Agony, you get a higher chance to generate Soul Shard. There is a kind of weird internal working of how this spell works. So when you have 1 Agony, there's just, think of it as like a 1 times chance. It keeps proccing to get a soul shard, and after so many times, it'll give you a shard. When you have 2 Agonies out, the second one has a much smaller chance to add to give you a soul shard, and then the third one has an even less chance. And beyond that, it's not worth casting Agony to get the soul shards, and it's much better to do an AoE rotation, which we'll go over later. But the way that Agony works is that it does ramp up damage time. If you take a talent, which is pretty much the main talent you'll be taking for Affliction, it means that Agony will take somewhere between, like, I think 20 plus seconds to actually ramp up to its max duration, where it should be doing its normal damage. That should be its normal damage is when it's maximum. Otherwise, it's very weak. If you're putting on an ad and it's going to live for 10 seconds, you're really not going to get much damage off of Agony. It's very little damage when it's on low stacks. It just does tiny ticks, and it just builds up each time it ticks. It does more and more and more. And that's how you should never let Agony fall off if you were doing it on a council fight or a single target, whatever. Do not let Agony fall off. If this one falls off, you will suffer big DPS loss, and that's one of the main flaws, that if you do that, you will suffer damage, and that's where you're going to see a difference in logs. That is the main spell. Banish, same. Burning Rush, that's talent. Command Demon, so usually you're going to be using the Fell Dreadstalker, what's he called? Shit. Fell Hunter, that's his name. Using the Fell Hunter, he is the main one for Affliction. You'll use him with your Grimoire if you're taking that talent. And he does an interrupt, which is his main ability to help. Corruption is just the normal dot now, so it just does flat out damage, just basic. Obviously you want to be keeping this up on the target. Again, like Agony, on 3 targets you'd be casting Corruption. When there's more than 3 targets, you're going to be doing your AoE rotation, so we'll go into that when we come to it. Hellstone, Great Soul Well, Demonic Gateway, just the same. Drain Life. So Drain Life is now our filler. We've lost Drain Soul to a talent. It's gone into a talent now. So Drain Life is the main filler spell. Remember, dots are the main focus of Affliction. This is your filler spell. You will only cast this once those dots are rolling. It's how the class works. The Drain Life does not do that much damage. It's just when you have all the dots rolling, you don't want to be casting Drain Life when Agony is about to fall off, and then you lose the Agony, because that would be a massive DPS loss trying to just value a clip of an extra Drain Life. It does very little damage. Enslaved Demon, forget about it. I have Killer Rogue, Fear. Grow Service, that's a talent. Hell Funnel, heals the pet. Life Tap, you will be using Life Tap. I don't believe there's a talent that you can take, no. So Life Tap will be constantly being used. There's no way to cheat it like on Destruction where you can take a talent. So make sure you use this spell wisely. don't ever let yourself go to 100% mana because you'd be wasting it. Just kind of let yourself float around, use it for when you're having to move and when you're moving out of abilities and running around to chase bosses and stuff. Summoning Portal, Seed of Corruption. Finally, yes, Affliction has got AoE damage, so that's something to be excited about. Corruption, Seed of Corruption, when it detonates, will do corruption to everything. Flat out, that's how it works now. So you need to put it on something, like this. So I'll go Seed of Corruption, and you'll have dots rolling, and when it explodes, boom, we've got corruption on everything now. And that's how the Seed of Corruption works now, so you'd be constantly tab targeting and putting Seed of Corruption on things, and it actually does nice AoE. For once, Affliction actually has AoE. It's amazing. The old Affliction would do less DPS AoE than they would single target. That's how pathetic it was. So now that we actually have got and now that we do have AoE talents and abilities that will actually make us viable for AoE content now. Siphon Life is a talent, so Soul Effigy, Soulstone, Res, Summon Demon, remember we'll be using the Fell Hunter, and we still have Doomguard and Infernal for our 3-minute cooldown. You have to choose between one of them. It's going to be Doomguard in almost every situation. Infernal does require something around 5 or 6 targets for the whole 25 second to be valuable, so pretty much it's always going to be Doomguard. Unending Resolve is a 3-minute cooldown. Remember, if you saw my destruction one, it's only 1.5 minutes for destruction, so there is a way in the talents of your artifact weapon to reduce this, I think, and maybe for demonology as well. But for now, it's 3 minutes. Still the same 40% damage reduction and immunity to interrupts. Mostly valuable for PvP or for when the boss ability does an AoE interrupt and you're able to use this ability to cheese it and continue just doing damage. But the main focus of Affliction is dot damage, so you aren't actually casting that much. You don't actually cast that much drain life as you think you will be. Unstable Affliction has changed as well. So now this is our main nuke ability. This is the ability which does a lot of damage other than Agony. Agony is always going to be just doing constant sustained damage, but Unstable Affliction is what you spend your soul shards on. So if I put my pet on passive, I'll go Unstable Affliction, and you can see it lasts I have the Clash Trinket on, which reduces the duration of Unstable Affliction, so it would last a little bit longer. But it uses a soul shard and does a lot of damage over the time. You can stack this ability. That's the main way you'll be using this ability, is by pooling up 5 soul shards and then going ham on one target, stack them up really high, just keep spamming them out. But make sure that you do have your dots continually rolling. I've been disconnected there. That's a bit weird. So you want to make sure that you are constantly keeping up a 5 stack, get 5 soul shards and then burn through them all. Usually use it for trinket procs, for maybe priority ad that needs to die as soon as possible. Use them all in that. That's the best way to use Unstable Affliction. As soon as it lets me log back in, we can continue. Alright. So, Unstable Affliction, and then we'll look at our Mastery. Oh, look at that garrison's done. Can't wait. Mastery increases the damage of Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, and Unstable Affliction. So it just increases your dot damage. Mastery is good, but Haste is the main stat. Haste is the main stat for Destruction, Demonology, and Affliction all. They're all the same. All the Haste is the most valuable. And then you're probably going to be going for Mastery after that, and keep crit and versatility last. Secrets of the Necrolite, your Drain Life is massively empowered, dealing 200% increased damage. So this just means that Drain Life is doing more damage now, but it does do a lot of healing, by the way. So Drain Life actually does a lot of healing, and it means that you're quite self-sufficient. Maybe if you're life tapping, you will be giving yourself that health back very fast. You are quite good at healing yourself with Drain Life. Soul Leech, talented, makes it insanely powerful. We've gone over it before. It just gives you like flat out 100k shield every 20 seconds. Just 1 second, it's giving like 5k shields, rapid. And then the Codex is the Green Fire Quest. So that's the spells. We'll go over the talents now. Haunt is a 15-second, is completely changed now, so 15-second cooldown, and its cast time. You will deal a big chunk of damage, and then that's it. It just deals a big chunk of damage, 57k it says, and if the target dies within 15 seconds, which is the cooldown of Haunt, if it dies within 15 seconds, Haunt's cooldown duration is reset. So that means that you'd be casting it on an ad that is going to die, that maybe you couldn't get your dots on, but is a high priority thing you want dead. So you'll cast Haunt on it, it'll die, then you get another Haunt back, and you just do the same again. Just keep going, Haunts on all the things that keep dying, and you get higher uptime on it. If you're casting it and then nothing dies, you can see that it's just wasted, and that's not how Haunt is used. Haunt, although, is a kind of shit talent compared to the other two. The other two are going to be better in all other circumstances. We have Writhing Agony. Agony's damage can now ramp up twice as high, and that's why Agony becomes very powerful, especially with Soul Effigy for single target and 2 target. When there are lots of targets, however, Writhing Agony is not the best one really. You're looking to Drain Soul, and Drain Soul replaces your Drain Life. It does more damage. It does the same healing, though it does less healing to compensate for the more damage, so that you drain the same amount of health. It's not better in that concept. It just does a little bit more damage, and now generates a Soul Shard if the target dies while you're channeling it. This means that you would be using it on fights where there are ads dying, so think of it like Haunt, but Drain Soul is just better because it's giving you shards back, which means that you can cast more Unstable Afflictions, which means that you can do even more damage, because Unstable Affliction hits hard. So very valuable Drain Soul for ads that are dying. If ads are not dying, and they live for a very long time, maybe you're thinking of Tyrant, the ad there where it's able to live a long time, you'd be getting Writhing Agony. However, now, currently, because it gets burst the hell down and they live for like 10 seconds, Drain Soul probably would be better, but although there's only 3 of them, probably I'd still stick with Writhing Agony. It's just better. Single target, 2 target. Drain Soul is just for lots of ads. It's kind of making compensation for Agony not being able to put dots on things, so that they won't get ramp up time, and you just use this to finish them off, and you continue your single target. The next row, so really Writhing Agony, main choice, single target, 2 target, Drain Soul for AoEing, kind of, because you'd catch it when the things are about to die. In dungeons, when they're just about to die, you'll clip them, get your soul shards, and then you can spend them on Unstable Afflictions on the higher health target ones, and you can continue to Drain Soul the other ones and keep going like that. Contagion means that your Unstable Affliction also increases all damage you deal to the target by 15%. Taking this talent is for single target, 2 target. I wouldn't take it for 3 target. I'd go with Absolute Corruption. So single target, 2 target for Contagion. The way that when you take this talent, it kind of changes your rotation, because now you no longer stack 5 soul shards for your Unstable Affliction. And the way that you use Unstable Affliction now is that you try to keep 100% uptime on this buff. So to kind of see it in action is, if I was on single target, I would have Unstable Affliction up, wait until it almost runs out, I cast another one like that, and just keeping my 2 dots up, and then keep Unstable Affliction up like that. So I'm pretty much using Unstable Affliction on cooldown, kind of, and just keeping it up like as if it was a normal dot, and that's how you are best able to maximize the damage taking this talent. So that's that. Absolute Corruption, on the other hand, means that we will never have to reapply Corruption. Once you cast Corruption, I'm not going to do it because it kind of messes with the dummies because the Corruption never goes away. Corruption, it now lasts for infinite amount of time. This is very easy to manage now. It means that you're not having to recast Corruption and keeping it up. And Corruption also does 25% increased damage. This is valuable for AoE because remember, Seed of Corruption applies Corruption to everything. So now Corruption is doing more damage and it's on every target. So if there was like 6-pack in a trash mob on a dungeon, you go Seed of Corruption and then everything would have Corruption on it and Corruption hits harder. So that's good. And it's kind of better for newer people as well who don't want to manage Contagion or Mana Tap, because it just means that there's one less dot to keep track of. It's never going to fall off as long as you reapply it in the first place. And you would take this talent for 3-4 targets and then AoE as well. Mana Tap is not very good. You can use it. It's more for AoE burst, because if you don't see, you're going to get... I mean, really, I just wouldn't really use this. You're either going to go single target, 2 target with Contagion, or you're going to be going for more targets and AoE with Absolute Corruption. So Mana Tap doesn't have that much of a place. It's consuming mana, it's giving you more life taps, it's a bigger pain in the ass. It's another thing to manage aside from the dots. And remember, you never want to be letting dots fall off. It's more important than keeping up a Mana Tap above 10% damage. So it is alright. I wouldn't see any fights that you can see this usable. If there is, give us a shout. I want to hear it. But you're just better sticking to one of these two. Next row, Demon Skin is the Soul Leech. This is the same for everything. Just take this one and gives you a massive shield constantly. Mortal Coil is a 11% heal, very small. Only if it manages to fear the target, so you can't use it on a boss. It's pathetic, really, just PvP talent. And Howl of Terror is the AoE fear. Siphon Life. So when I said before that you would take Writhing Agony with Soul Effigy, similarly you will take Siphon Life, because what this talent does is an extra dot to manage. So if you like this dot playstyle, then definitely go with Writhing Agony, Contagion, Siphon Life and Soul Effigy. That means that you're going to be constantly keeping up those dots, and if that's what you enjoy, then have fun, because you barely ever cast Drain Life. And do remember that the old in Worlds of Draenor, if you're playing Affliction, that doing Drain Soul would mean that you were then doing more damage with your dots. The way that Affliction works now is dots just do more damage on their own, and Drain Life, because we have Drain Life or Drain Soul if you pick it, doesn't increase the damage of the dots. They are constantly the same damage. They don't get increased by doing the Drain Life like that. They don't do more damage when you're doing it. So essentially you could just keep running around and just dotting everything up, and you do max damage that they would do, other than Agony because it needs ramp up time. So Siphon Life offers an extra dot to manage, 15-second duration, does a nice chunk of damage. You'd be putting it up on the Soul Effigy and the targets. Again, 3 targets max, otherwise you're going AoE setup. It also heals you for all the damage it deals. So again, this is like a very nice rejuvenation spell that heals you for quite a lot. The more targets you have it up on, the more healing you're going to do. So especially in PvP, it's just very nice to keep with the Soul Leech Demon Skin talent. You've just got a shield and a heal over time. Pretty much self-sufficient. However, on the other hand, when you want to go AoE, 4 targets or more, 4 or 5 targets, sow the seeds. Remember, they need to be stacked up. If they aren't stacked up and it's a council fight where they're all spread out running around maybe, then sow the seeds is going to be a bit shit, because you need to be in range, they need to be able to cleave and hit each other, and this combos really well with Grimoire Sacrifice, which we'll go into later. But sow the seeds now makes it so that when you cast Seed of Corruption, if you have a soul shard, you no longer have to do soul burn like you do in Worlds of Draenor. It's basically remove silver and just compound it into Seed of Corruption, just one spell. Now you cast Seed of Corruption, and it will give 4 other ones Seed of Corruption. So now you have 5 total. Essentially, your AoE has now times in damage by 5 for Seed of Corruption. Total overall damage maybe of like times 3, because Corruption will be doing quite a bit of damage as well. But yeah, you kind of have to commit to AoE on Affliction, or you commit to single target. That's one of the weaknesses that Affliction has, is you either go, I'm doing AoE, and go with the AoE talents, with Drain Soul, Sow the Seeds, Grim of Sacrifice, and Soul Conduit. You either go that way, or you go, oh, well, I'm going single target, and I go Writhing Agony, Contagion, Siphon Life, and Soul Effigy with the Grim of Service. So you kind of have to choose, is it a dungeon, or you're going to be going Sow the Seeds. So this is very good for AoE. Soul Harvest is there for the burst if you need it in a fight, but generally it's a bit shit of a talent. It's not that great. It's very niche. Your overall DPS won't be as high with the other two in any circumstances, so you're either going AoE or you're going 3 targets. That's what you're going to be going for. Soul Harvest, I'll just go over it, is 20% damage increase, 10-second duration, it's higher duration, the more agonies you have. Remember, you don't have an ability that like Cataclysm for Destruction did, where it would apply Immolate to everything and then you get 30 seconds. Now you have to single target cast Agony onto everything. So it's kind of a flaw in it. The other 2 specs, like Demonology has it for Doom, Hand of Doom, able to put Doom on everything. Destruction has Cataclysm. Affliction doesn't have it. It doesn't work. So you have to single target cast Agony and then do Soul Harvest and everything. Kind of a bit shit. Just stick with the other 2. Next talent row, Demonic Circle, Teleport, not that valuable. Remember, Affliction has so much more movement than the other 2 specs. So you're really going to be taking Dark Power with Affliction, unless Burning Rush requires you to be running fast out of places, then you'll be taking that talent. Since that Affliction is able to cast on the move a lot compared to Destruction and Demonology. It's kind of think of it as like even better than a Fire Mage at movement. They're just able to run around the place with no penalty, other than when they want to cast Drain Life, which remember Drain Life does very little damage, it's just there as a filler. So Dark Pact, just massive shield, most likely going to be the most valuable unless you're running around the place with Burning Rush. Next row, Grim of Supremacy. Just know, this one's for leveling, don't use it otherwise. You want to use Grim of Service on cooldown, unless you're timing it with the ring in the pre-patch right now, then you'd use it, you'd save it. It's 1.5 minute cooldown, you just save it for 30 seconds and then use it with the ring. Remember, demons don't do that much damage in Affliction or Destruction. Demons do a lot of damage in Demonology. So this talent row is quite specific. It's Service for single target, 2 target, or you will go Sacrifice. Sacrifice now does AoE damage, so when I'll just show it off. So I sacrifice my pet, and when I put my dots up, you can see the explosions going off on everything. So this purple explosion is doing AoE, and if we look at my damage done, Demonic Power is steadily increasing to the top of the damage along with Agony. It won't be Agony, because Agony is just insane. Once it's ramped up, it's time. But Demonic Power, yeah, is for AoE. Your demons do very shit damage, so once there's 3 targets available to be hit with the AoE of Sacrifice, it's going to demolish the demons' talents. So I'll just go back to Service. Remember, Fell Hunter is for Service. You want to be casting that one. And you also get to have Doom Guard cooldown, remember? So that's what you'll also be using. And that's 3-minute cooldown, so you'd use that with the ring. Soul Effigy is what I've been talking about before. So welcome to Soul Effigy. We now get Prismatic Crystal, what the mages used to have, and it lasts forever. So that's a great thing. So you bind it to a target. The way it works is that Soul Effigy, you choose a target, you Soul Effigy them. The Soul Effigy will spawn next to you, so I could spawn it all the way over here if I wanted. And now I can begin to attack it. And you can watch the damage. The way that it works is it transfers 35% of the damage you deal to Soul Effigy to the target. So this is very good for PvP in the sense that you could put Soul Effigy down behind a pillar, and then you could just tunnel a Soul Effigy, and people would be going, "Oh, he's killing me." Well, because he's got Soul Effigy down, and at the moment in arenas, if the Affliction Warlock casts Soul Effigy on you, you're pretty much dead, because you can't hide, and you can't hide from their damage. It's just unfair, and they're so tanky. Warlocks in a 1v1, they're very hard to beat. But that's Soul Effigy, and the way that you'll utilize this is in single target especially, or 2 targets, arguably 3 targets you can also use it, but they need to be stacked 3 targets and you take sacrifice with it that way. If they are not stacked 3 targets with Soul Effigy, then you don't want to be going Soul Effigy, you want to take Soul Conduit. If you think of it like Council on Hellfire Citadel, there's 3 targets there. One of them dies very quickly, but let's just pretend that Gertog manages to survive somehow for 2 minutes. They aren't stacked up, so D is off on her own, and then there's the 2 stacked up. So you would be taking, you wouldn't want to be taking Soul Effigy for that because there's 3 targets there. You already have 3 targets to keep up Agony, and Soul Effigy sacrifice is not going to be benefiting because sacrifice also blows up on the Soul Effigy. If I do this and I sacrifice a pet, once I get all of the dots going, you can see the explosion is also coming off from the Soul Effigy, and that means that we're able to get a lot of ramp up damage with the demonic power. Now I want to stop fighting. I'm going to have to wait for the dots to fall off. The next talent is Phantom Singularity. So this ability is a 1-minute cooldown and is very useless, unfortunately. It's quite a shit talent. You wouldn't really be using this. The Soul Conduit's going to be better in any circumstance. Its AoE damage heals you over time. You just want to be going for Soul Conduit, which every soul shard you spend has a 20% chance to be refunded. So this is good for AoE because when you go sow the seeds and you do this, so I go Seed of Corruptions and everything, I just get a couple agonies to proc the damage, and once Seed of Corruption goes off, there's just so many, and we're able to the change talents, the sacrifice went. So I would be keeping 3 agonies and just Seed of Corruptioning everything constantly, just like that. And the way it works is that it's constantly going to be proccing, and it's a lot of damage. As you can see from the DPS, it's just quickly done it there. And you keep on getting refunded soul shards back. It's giving you those sow the seeds, allowing you to give more Seed of Corruptions out and do a lot of damage. So you're either going to go Soul Effigy for 1 or 2 targets, 3 targets if they're stacked. Otherwise, it's Soul Conduit for 4 targets or more. That's kind of the rotation of the Affliction Warlock, is you just have to really go into an all-out AoE spec, or you have to choose single target spec. So Soul Conduit is good because it allows you to keep up the contagion if you went it for single target. It is possible to go Soul Conduit, but Soul Effigy allows you to just get more agony damage, and agony is generating soul shards, so it kind of fills in the role of Soul Conduit, giving you extra soul shards, whilst also doing extra damage. So that's why you can see that talent's better, and that's why I kind of like Soul Effigy. It's just quite a unique ability. remember, you need to kind of put it so you're able to hit it, and it's kind of good to have some add-ons to track your debuffs on all the targets, because you want to be able to see what everything's on. And if I let Agony fall off, then all the damage would be wasted, because now you can see it's on 11 stacks, 12 stacks, and then if I let that drop off and I wanted to reapply it again, it's so much damage wasted. And if you can't manage that, it's best to just stick with Soul Conduit. If you are unable to keep up your dots and everything, taking Siphon Life, Writhing Agony and Contagion, you never want to cast a Unstable Affliction on the Soul Effigy. You will, when you take Contagion and it's a council fight, say, you will just keep Contagion up on one target. You'll just keep it up on one. So imagine I don't have Soul Effigy. Just move it over there. So there was 3 targets, and they were all spread out, council fight, and I have Unstable, I have Agony up on everything, and then I have Siphon Life on everything. I would only put the Unstable Affliction on 1, making sure that I keep up Agony prioritized, whilst also keeping up all of the other dots. So as you can see, I don't let Agony fall off primarily, but I want to be keeping up Unstable Afflictions. So I just keep tunneling in with Unstable Afflictions on one target, whilst also keeping up my... And I'm going to get so many shards back, it's kind of hard to keep up. That's why you wouldn't be putting Agony on any more targets than that. And I could have done that better, I was just kind of showing it. But just remember, Agony is main damage. You can see from the DPS. Agony just is main damage, followed by the other dots. And Unstable Affliction is also just quite nice damage. I wasn't using it as much as I could have been there, but Unstable Affliction does do a lot of damage, and it's keeping up that 15% damage buff for Contagion, making it very good. So, to kind of finish that, the way that Affliction works is that it's good for council fights, it's quite alright for single target. It mainly shines on just the council fights, so it's alright on single target. Target switching, it kind of sucks. It doesn't have that ability, because you can't put your dots up and then continue to nuke. It's just so much ramp up time to be able to start nuking a priority target. You'd have to really suffer DPS loss to start using things like Haunt if you wanted to go for priority target damage as soon as they're spawning, going for Soul Harvest for the burst, things like that. And it suffers your total DPS, but will make it acceptable for target switching. AoE, however, sustained AoE is quite good. Burst AoE is alright, not as good as Demonology, of course, is there for burst AoE, but it's just kind of there for the sustained, keeping up those sow the seeds, getting corruption and everything, and just going ham. The legendary weapon offers some good AoE talents. I think it's called like Soul Consume or something. It's when a target dies, it'll explode doing damage, and that really bumps up the damage for AoE dungeons. However, we don't have that in the pre-patch, and so you can kind of see the difference. It just kind of feels a bit meh. It's not really there in terms of damage. So that's it really for Affliction. It just has insane movement, and that's kind of where it shines as well. If you're unable to do that with Destruction or Demonology in a fight where you're running around constantly, Unstable Affliction is going to shine in that sense. So I hope that look at the Affliction Warlock was good, and if you liked it, give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more Warlock videos, and I'll see you around. Bye bye.